Okay, so today we're going to go over the experimental design. I'm going to give Ms. O'Leary the pen. So when you do an experimental design, you're going to have two parts to it. You're going to do what we call a variable design chart. So we're going to include 3 variables, and we learned 2 of them the other day. So we learned the independent variable causes the change, and then the dependent variable is what we measure when we do an experiment. But now we're going to add what are called constants, and in here we're going to call them extraneous variables, just so that we can say extra, extra, extra when we put them in our chart. So constants are things that could change the outcome, and we don't want them to. So we're going to keep them the same.
Yeah, we call them controlled variables sometimes.
So then after we get our chart done, we're going to go and we're going to make some procedures. And we're going to make this short. You would have a lot of detail in your procedures, but we only want to have 5 steps to go with our 5 steps that are in our chart. Okay? So we are going to add a little bit of detail to them, but we're not going to make you write like pages and pages and pages of procedure. Okay? So the variable design chart is a brainstorming activity for you, and it's set up as a double T chart, and you'll see it below in just a second. In addition to the variables, you have to have what's called a control group and an experimental group. So the control group is what normal would be. Okay? It does not get the independent variable. Okay? The experimental group will get the independent variable that causes the change. And we have both groups so that when we finish, we can compare one group to the other. So in this activity, you're going to be watching this cute little video that we're making for you right now, and then we are going to create a variable design chart. So we're going to work with a hypothesis, and our hypothesis today is that if you eat broccoli, it will affect your test score on Ms. O'Leary's math test. Okay, so eating broccoli affects test scores on Ms. O'Leary's math test. So our first job is to identify what the independent variable is in that experiment. So Ms. O'Leary, if eating broccoli is going to affect the math scores on your test, what would be causing the change?
The cause of the change would be eating broccoli. My independent variable is broccoli consumption.
So the experimental group gets the independent variable. So I am going to write broccoli. I can spell it correctly. Okay, now the control group does not get the independent variable, so we come over here and we write no broccoli. Okay, so no broccoli, broccoli. Remember, this is just brainstorming. So now, thinking about our hypothesis again, broccoli affects the test scores on Ms. O'Leary's math test. What would be the dependent variable, Ms. O'Leary?
Well, we are measuring test scores, so our dependent variable is going to be our test scores.
So both groups are going to get that. So we are going to check test scores, and we are going to check test scores, so it's going to be the same. Now, if you notice, we get to our constants, and we like this because we go extra, extra, extra. We need 3 of them, okay? So when we do our constants, they have to be things that could change your test score besides broccoli. So Ms. O'Leary, do you have any ideas of something that could change your test score?
As I tell my kids, getting a good night's sleep before a test is essential to scoring well. So I want to make sure that my control group and my experimental group get the same amount of sleep.
Okay, so how much sleep would you like to get the night before your test?
Let's go with 9 hours. 9 hours seems like a great amount of sleep.
Yay, we get the same 9 hours. So we're going to put that, and both groups get it the same. So 9 hours of sleep and 9 hours of sleep. Okay, Ms. O'Leary, we need something else that could affect these test scores besides sleeping.
Well, if I have a student in my math class taking my test, I would imagine that they would do better than a student who is in 3rd grade taking my test.
Okay.
So we need to make sure the students are in the same level of math.
Okay, so does it also matter whether they would be in like algebra or
Yeah.
like pre-algebra?
That could change it.
So we better specify that. What are we gonna have these students be?
Well, if they're taking my math test, they should be Math 1 honors students.
So again, it's going to be the same. Math 1 honors, Math 1 honors. Okay, there has to be one other thing that's super important about taking a test.
What about the amount that a student studies? Some students study a lot, some don't study at all, and I want to make sure that's not going to affect my results.
So how much, Ms. O'Leary, do you think you should study to do well on one of your math tests?
Well, I think you should be studying every day and completing all of your assignments, but the night before the test, I would say that 1 hour of review, 1 hour of studying the night before the test is plenty. 1 hour.
Okay, so again, one more time, it has to be the same. Both groups get this the same. So she said you're gonna study for 1 hour. So we're gonna study for 1 hour. Okay, so there's our brainstorm. We now know kind of in our brains how this experiment is going to run. But now we have to turn that into procedures. So for each piece of this chart, you have to have a step in your procedures. So we're going to scroll back and forth between this and we're going to write the procedures. So Ms. O'Leary, given that this is everything that we need to do this experiment, okay, what do you think the first step would be that we would need to do in our experiment? What would we have to do with all of these things first?
Well, the first thing we're going to need to do is we need to get our students together. I want all of my Math 1 honors students.
How many
ready to go.
students is that?
This year, that is 43.
Okay, so we have 43 students, and how many groups do we need?
We need 2 groups.
Okay, so how many students will be in each group?
We're going to put 21 and a half students.
We'll just cut 2 students out of the
Okay.
experiment. So how many kids in each group?
We're going to have 20 students in each group.
Okay, so I'm gonna have her scroll, and we're gonna do the first step of our procedure. So, Ms. O'Leary told us that we're gonna have 40 students all together, okay, and we're gonna split them into 2 groups. So, here's step 1, okay, gather 40 Math 1 honors students and split them into 2 groups of 20 each. Okay, Ms. O'Leary, what is our next step?
Well, now we are the night before the test, and we want each student in both groups to study for 1 hour.
What are they going to study? What chapter are you on?
We are right now, we're just starting chapter 3, but we're going to pretend this is 1 week ago, right before our chapter 1 and 2 tests.
Okay, so have all 40 students study the chapter 2 review. What time are they going to study? From when to when?
Oh, they are going to study from, we need to make sure we get enough sleep. So they're going to study at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 p.m.
From 6 to 7 p.m. Okay. Notice that we are adding the detail to this. So we had a brainstorm over here, but I've got a lot more in here. What comes next, Ms. O'Leary?
Well, next is that good night of sleep, 9 hours. So for my students to get 9 hours of sleep, they're going to need to go to bed by 9 o'clock.
Okay, so all students go to bed at 9 p.m., which means when do they get up?
And get up at 6 a.m.
And get up at 6 a.m.
And that 9 o'clock bedtime is not 9 o'clock to scroll on Instagram and stay up staring at your screens all night. That's bedtime.
There you go. Turn the lights off. Get some good sleep. Okay, now what happens, Ms. O'Leary?
Well, now it is the morning of the test, and everybody is going to get up at 6 o'clock, get ready for the day, and they need to eat some breakfast.
Okay, but with one group of 20, what do they have to have with their breakfast?
Well, one group of 20 needs to eat broccoli.
Okay, but can the other group not eat it all?
Well, that would not be healthy. We need to make sure they eat some breakfast. So everybody is going to have Lucky Charms for breakfast.
Okay. At 6 a.m., everyone eats Lucky Charms. How much broccoli should the experimental 20 get?
Let's go with 6, what are they called, florets?
Sure, there you go. The experimental 20 also eats 20 florets
Yes.
of broccoli. Whoops.
Broccoli and
I can
Lucky
spell
Charms.
broccoli. Broccoli and Lucky Charms.
Great combination.
Breakfast of champions. Okay, and finally, what happens?
Well, then they're going to take the test, and we are going to take a look at their results. We're going to analyze test scores.
Okay, so which test are they taking?
They are taking the chapter 1 and 2.
Okay, so all students take the chapter 2 math test and compare results. Woo! So, this is an experimental design. If you were looking on the next page of this, you would see where we had written procedure, and you should have these 5 steps in your procedure. We couldn't do that because we
The
couldn't.
words are in the way here,
The
but it
words
looks
are,
like this.
it should be, so your procedure should be filled in right here, just like we wrote them on the board. So you can go back and you can get that into there. Okay, so now it's your turn. We just did one for you. Now you have to come up with your own brainstorm and procedure, and we are giving you a new hypothesis. So your hypothesis is that adding salt to water affects the boiling time of water. So you have to make a design chart and some pretty detailed procedures to go with that. All right? Okay, have fun.
Good luck.